All right, I'll call the meeting to order at 7 p.m. All right, we're going to start off with the board norms and any changes to agenda. So the board norms are maintain our focus, communicate respectfully, be present, keep the board productive and effective, and respect the agenda. So those are our board norms. I wanted to make a little tweak to this, seeing that as this is our last meeting of the year 2021. I wanted to just do a board norms year-end edition. And it's been a very challenging year, and I think it would be appropriate and nice of board members to shout out any thank yous to folks. So I will, as people maybe collectively start to think about who they want to thank, I'll just, I will talk about some folks that I certainly want to thank. The administration for doing an amazing job. This has been one of the most tumultuous years that we will probably ever see. Knock on wood, 2022 coming up. But they've just been able to pivot and move and change, and the administration in doing that has forced folks further down, the principals, the teachers, everybody else along the way has just been very adaptable, flexible, and it's just been amazing to see. And so I really thank folks for that. And of course, most important, and the reason we're here, is the students. Loving seeing the students transition from remote to in-person, back to remote, or all of the changes that have happened over the last year. It's been incredible to see. I've had a couple at my house as well that have been very flexible, and certainly I know for us older folks, this has been very difficult couple years, but for folks that are in high school, this represents half of their high school career, or a very large portion of their schooling. So really hats off to those folks, and so really appreciate it. And that is my thank you, and I'll hand it off to anybody else who would like to chime in.
I would like to pile on to that, a special shout out to the staff, teachers and other support staff who have just been really great this year at making the best of things for the students and finding ways to make really fun stuff still happen, even when things seem like they could not get a lot worse sometimes. My kids still come home from school saying, oh, we did this really cool thing. And so huge shout out for finding a little bit of normalcy in all of it.
Thanks, Lindsay. Go ahead, Drew.
I think we thank the parents, because certainly our education systems have been upended, but their lives have been by our education system, between changing of rules and sending kids home and remote education. And so, I mentioned everybody that's already been mentioned, but I think the parents deserve a shout out for dealing with this pandemic as well.
Thanks, Drew. I knew I was going to forget somebody. You always do. So thanks for that. Go ahead, Ken.
Yeah, sure. I'd like to shout out to definitely staff. Thank you, administration, all our teachers, our students for putting up with us, because they've had a rough time of it. Especially I would like to thank the, recently I had a slight hospitalization, and I'd like to thank the Newbrook students and the teachers, staff there, for all the wonderful cards they sent me, and they were really wonderful. I'd like to thank all the parents and all you people that show up on the board meetings, whether you're here in person or via Zoom. Thank you, because we need your opinion, because we work for you. That's all I have.
Thanks, Ken. That's great. Anybody else?
I think that's everybody.
Well, I was going to throw out not just the thank yous, but words of encouragement that going into the new year, we're not going to give up on you. we're gonna keep going and we're gonna see this through the end. So, we're in it as a team.
I love it. That's great, Dan. Hey, Joe.
Hi.
So, sorry to drop this on you, but we did a little impromptu on the board norms, where we are thanking people for this year that we've had that's been very tumultuous. So if there's anybody that you wanted to thank in particular? Not to put you on the spot?
Yeah, not to put me on the spot. And everybody's already been thanked. I think I would just echo what everyone else has said.
That was brilliant, yes. All right.
Ann, then on Howie or Ann.
Oh, Howie. Go ahead, Howie.
He's good.
Oh, he's good. Was there anybody, the other? Ann.
Ann.
Oh, Ann, I'm sorry. Ann, go ahead.
No?
I thought it was Howard who had his hand up, but I'd just like to echo what everyone else has said. And thank you to all the staff and the parents and the community members who care about the students.
All right, thanks, Ann. All right, well, very good. Thank you, I appreciate it. Lots of thank yous for everybody. Okay, any changes to the agenda?
Do we need to add the winter sports update to the agenda?
Yes, I think we can just plug it under principals report, but yeah, we can definitely do that. Yep, good call out. We'll make note of that. All right, moving on to members of the public. If there's something that is, I'm sorry, skipped over correspondence. We did get some more correspondence, and it was also about long-term planning. We continue to get correspondence about that. Certainly feel free to read about that, and we will certainly address that later on as the officers kind of give a recap of what we discussed with a facilitator that we will be having coming up. So we will get to that. Members of the public, if there's anything that is not on the agenda and you want to speak to it now, please go ahead and let us know. If not, we'll go ahead and jump right in. All right, seeing none. Student reports. Is Ansley there?
Hi, I'm here. I just wasn't sure if Ruthie wanted to go first or not.
You can go first and then I'll.
Okay, so I have quite a bit because I've been taking notes since for the last couple of weeks. So first off, a message from Student Council. We had a full day retreat on November 18th, and we got to meet with Mr. Tebow, talk to our students, and really learn about how we can change our school and make it better. A good portion of our day, we met with John and Mike, who are a part of the maintenance crew at Leon and Gray, and we just talked about future building fixes. Since then, they've actually repainted the girls' bathroom so it doesn't look like Home Depot anymore. It's really nice. It's really pretty. Like I'm so happy it's not orange anymore. And that's like they did that within like just 2 weeks of our meeting. And then since then, they've talked about redoing the sea-level bathrooms with their current funds. And so it's really exciting to see things getting updated at Leon and Gray. And then Student Council is planning our winter pep rally that's going to be happening in February. So we're really excited about that. The theme is Let's Snow, because hopefully we'll have more snow on the ground by then. And I mean, as you can see, Ruthie's in a basketball jersey, so it's really great to be able to have live basketball games back at Leon and Gray and be able to support our teammates. And I've been to every single game so far, so I'm really excited to be able to have basketball games. And I think that's everything from me.
Thanks, Ansley. Are you reporting live from the basketball game?
I am not. I was gonna head up there and then head down to the game, but not gonna lie, I forgot to leave my house in time, so I'm at home still.
That's all right. It was a great JV game. You missed it.
That's good. Very good. Good luck, Ruthie.
So as you heard, we have a JV team, which is pretty new or not new, but we haven't had one in a few years for girls at our school, and we actually won our first game, which was today. We also recently, Thursday is our last day, but we have completed module 2 of our PBL, and we've come up with some pretty great stuff. We have different groups, and I know one group talked about the dress code and made a few revamps to that and stuff like that. And then there's a whole bunch of other ideas. Personally, I know what happened in my group, don't really know what happened in other people's groups, but that's what we're going to talk about on Thursday. So, yeah, it's been pretty busy. I think we're all really excited for vacation, though.
Very excited.
Great. Wow. Excellent student reports. They've really upped their game, Bob. Very nice. Any questions for our students?
Quick while that one runs away.
Yeah, right. Have a great game. All right. Thank you. Moving on to new business, pipelines to pathways request. And I see that we have both Adam and Christy in the audience out there. I don't know who would like to speak to it.
Hi. Yeah, we also have Jen Stromson, who's the director of programs. She's here as well. I'm Christy Beatty. Hi, how's everybody doing? I love your intro, and Ainsley, that was a lovely, update. I loved it. So yes, I'm here to talk about the Pipelines and Pathways program and how we collaborate with your school. So I'm going to go through a PowerPoint that Bob actually has. If he could put that up on the screen. I'll go through it relatively quickly. I want to be aware of your time. I have about 15 minutes. Is that right?
Yes.
Or less.
Sure.
About 15 minutes? Okay, great. So I'll go through the PowerPoint and then I'll pass it along to my executive director, Adam Gernol. We'll open it up for questions and then we'll go from there. So awesome.
I think we're good, Christy.
Yeah. Are you ready?
Yep.
Okay. Now you've experienced what every teacher did on Zoom last year. So, all right. So let me just go over quickly a little bit of background on P3. So we work with students at all 4 Windham County high schools to bring career awareness and preparedness programming to students in high-wage, high-growth employment opportunities. This program is designed for all students, whether they are college or workforce bound. Next slide, please.
Do you see the next slide?
I do not. Oh wait, yes, I do now. I do now. All right. So we are based at Brattleboro Development Credit Corporation, which is your regional economic development organization serving southeastern Vermont. We're an active partner in regional workforce and business development, and we have a lot of employer relationships and workforce knowledge that help us design and implement a program that straddles a variety of sectors. I promise I'll stop just reading from the slides in a moment. So just to give you a background, why P3? So P3 began about 5 years ago. I was not around at that point. This is Adam and my colleague Alex's work, and of course Jennifer as well. And what we were trying to sort of solve was the problem of, how to handle an aging workforce and a youth population that employers were saying are kind of lacking in the basic employability skills and other 21st century soft skills like, resilience and teamwork and critical thinking and that kind of thing. So that's how it began about 5 years ago, is saying, how are we going to make those connections between employer pipelines that are, available and abundant, especially now, and students' educational pathways. So moving forward. So another reason that we, developed P3 and it was sort of further developed, is because of a really interesting study by VSAC about post-secondary outcomes of seniors throughout the state. So they studied a longitudinal study of students between 2012 and 2018. And what they found is we have great high school graduation rates here in Vermont. And it seems like, according to this chart here, that in Windham County, we have some pretty high percentages of folks who plan on going to college. But if you move to the next slide, what you find out is there's a phenomenon called summer melt. And summer melt is when students kind of lose their teacher champions, or perhaps they, come into some challenges around, financing their education, whatever comes up over the course of the summer, anxiety. These certain amount of students kind of fall off and they don't end up enrolling. That's about 17.9% in Windham County. So then we have about 50% of our kids that are headed off to college. Next slide. But the challenge here, beyond that, is that 4 years after high school graduation, as they're looking at this swath of children from 2012 to 2018, we find that 70% of our kids don't have a college diploma, which is not necessarily a problem. But if we're talking about, how to measure success of our students, and we're just thinking about college diplomas, then there's kind of a disconnect here. So moving forward, great. So we want to be clear that, employment rather than college does not have to mean a tragedy if we can connect these kids with quality jobs, training, credentials of value, and we have those connections at BDCC to help. Bringing awareness of quality employment opportunities in our region to our college-bound population. And I'm a perfect example of this. When you head off to college, you can know that there's opportunity back here for employment. It may take you, 20 years to come back, but you know that there's that opportunity that's here. So moving forward. So our goal, which is the goal of Leland and Gray as well, is a holistic approach to career and post-secondary planning. We wanted to begin as early as 7th grade, maybe even earlier if we can. But the key is that we want to ensure that every student is better prepared for the expectations and rigors of the adult and professional world, and that every student has a solid plan, whether college or workforce bound. So the day that they, accept that diploma on the graduation stage, they can say, I know what my next step is. I may not know, what I'm going to do 5 years from now, but I've got the next step. Okay, so moving forward. So I'm going to give you a little history of the P3 and LNG collaboration. So BDCC began with what we call the Fast Tracks to Success program in 2016, led by my colleague Alex Beck. And that primarily consisted of worksite tours and our annual sophomore summit, where we bring every sophomore from Windham County together for a day-long career awareness event with lots of workshops with various employers. So next slide. Then BDCC hired a full-time P3 coordinator in 2018. That is me. When we started out, the first thing we did was kick off with a manufacturing month tours, and we brought the entire 9th grade class to a whole bunch of different high-wage, high-growth manufacturers in the region. One of the quotes that I like to highlight here is from Kristen Boyle. She's an alum and a parent of a 2020 alum. And it says, I just wanted to let you know how thankful I am for the co-op program at LNG. It has made a huge impact on Matthew. Since taking co-op this semester, we have seen such an improvement in his personality and overall well-being. No longer is it a battle to attend school. I know the majority of this is due to the co-op program. I hope this program can continue to grow and thrive. So the co-op program was established before my time, but I have been able to come into the fold and work with Terry Davis and Berger very closely to continue with this co-op program and really, bring it to the next level. So moving on to the next slide. So Terry did this great survey of the students after they left the program. And 100% of the students said they would recommend co-op to other students. Great quote from Elizabeth Halvey, class of 2018. It helped me prepare because it helped me decide what I wanted to go to college for. Next slide. Have you used any of the skills you learned in class? 92.6% of students said that they did. Emma Kelly, class of 2020. It helped me get ready for applying for jobs and being professional at work. It helped me learn how to be an adult in the job field. Okay, moving forward. So that's what we did in the past. That's how we kind of started out working closely with Terry. Now, what we're doing primarily is our senior survival class. We had a class all online last year for the class of 2021. And this year we are back in person. As you can see, the picture of the kids right there is an exercise we did in tying a tie, which is a practical exercise, but it also sort of brings light to, learning styles and your ability to be resilient even when you don't understand how to do something. And so that all those kiddos learned how to tie a tie, which is a great photo. So this class is designed to help all students learn the skills necessary to take their first steps into the professional world. And the reason that senior survival happened, or the curriculum happened, is not, solely from P3 by any stretch of the imagination. Senior survival was something that was well established in the history of Leland and Gray, but we're able to bring it back. And I work very closely with Terry to develop this curriculum and lesson plans. So if you click on that link to senior survival syllabus and lesson plans, oh, crud. That's all right. It's not, you know what? It's okay. I'll give you access later. Oh, Google. What that document has on it is the syllabus. So all of the class topics, and it also has links to every single PowerPoint, every single lesson that I was able to create given that pause during the COVID break. And by break, I mean, we were still working with the kids, but I was able to develop those things in partnership with Terry. So I'll see if I can share that with you later. Moving forward. So upon completion of the class modules, there are 14 modules, students gain additional knowledge, clarity, and confidence about their future. It's a great resume builder. Last year was the first year they got P3 honor cords, turquoise honor cords, and certificates of completion. And every student who completed the program to our rigorous standards, Terry and I worked very closely on this, received a Wyndham Work Ready credential, which is an indication that students are ready to take their first steps into the professional world. Moving forward. So just highlighting that clarity of purpose for seniors. For the class of 2021 and class of 2022, a survey was done, again by Terry, who's awesome, and 26 alumni responded. And you can see that lots of students had plans for the future, which is amazing, right? They weren't just sort of going off and floating around and bopping from, low income job to, their parents' couch, right? They actually had some plans for the future, which is great. This year's class, we're teaching the current semester of students, and they all have a lot of plans. There are 2 who are undecided, but by the end of the year, we're going to make sure that they have a plan in place. So moving forward. So again, upon completion of all the modules, students get a guaranteed informational interview with an employer of choice that could lead to a job. Last year, we did these informational interviews via Zoom, and I was able to reach out to high wage, high growth employers to set those up. I am currently doing that right now, and after the holiday break, we'll be having additional informational interviews for the semester students. Kids also get a P3 hoodie, which is a big win. We had gift certificates from local businesses, so from the Dam Diner and from Harmonyville, that were kind of useful in incentivizing the kids, particularly last year when it was really tough to be having a class on Zoom every day. And then we also offer a $500 scholarship to one outstanding senior. So that's our first senior, actually. Pictured above is Austin Meeks, who won the first scholarship in the class of 2020. From the informational interviews, we have Owen Amadun, class of 2021. He says, the interview with Ben Hardwood of Stevens and Associates was especially helpful to me because it backed up my idea of swapping majors in civil engineering, and I believe I will follow through with this decision. So these informational interviews can be really impactful. Moving forward. So one of the things that was asked is student incentives from BDCC. How were they helpful, and did they incentivize the students? The Wyndham Work Ready credential, 100% said they were incentivized by that. 100% said they, were encouraged by the BDCC scholarship, and 100% said that the gift certificates were really helpful in making them, keep moving forward with the class. So we hope to keep doing that practice. Additional programming for this year. We completed a sophomore summit in November. Because of contact tracing concerns, Leland Gray opted not to go, but that's okay because we videotaped and documented it, and we plan to share that information with your school. But normally we do that annually in person. It's a day-long event. I advertised recently guest speaker panels. Thanks, Bob, for sending that email. So we can have folks come in to to complement any core curriculum. So STEM teachers can have, folks from BMH coming in to talk about healthcare careers. We offer worksite tours. This year is a little bit trickier, but we can definitely do it. And we pay for transportation. This spring we'll be holding a reality fair, which is a fun event where students are given a paycheck, quote unquote, for a job as if they're an entry-level employee, and they have to make their way around the game of life. So challenges like paying for a house, paying for an apartment, paying for, transportation, a cell phone, and hopefully by the end they have a little money left over. If not, they can get a side hustle, which by going to the Craigslist person and getting a side job. So that'll be a fun community building event. We have been doing planning on educator training. So really focusing in on how can we make this sustainable? How can we make this bigger? And really focusing in on training for core content teachers in ways that they can more often integrate career education into their regular classes. So that's something that's coming. We do a lot of employer training because it turns out employers don't necessarily know how to work with kids directly. So we make sure that they understand where they are developmentally so that they're ready to offer some fun and engaging activities. And then also we have on the horizon some career boot camps. We did our first pilot last summer, a 4-day event that was sort of a compressed senior survival in 4 days, followed by some internships. And we had 3 of your students who participated in these paid internships at $14 an hour. Moving forward, and I'm almost wrapping up, I promise. So our future goals, Terry and guidance counselor Sarah Grasso are working on a plan to integrate career topics into every grade level. So what we really want to do is take the senior survival and break it up over time so that we're not triaging in senior year, so that kids are really ready their senior year. One of the things that we offer is our 8 steps to future success, which is a scope and sequence of career awareness and preparedness that will enhance Terry and Sarah's work. And I am prepared to create easy to implement lessons for all the advisors on any of these topics. So I think this is the last slide. Yeah, that's just additional information on that 8 steps to your future success. And the final slide, which I really, really appreciate, is Terry, who has been an incredible champion of P3. And she says, Chrissy's lesson plans have added quality to our programs. It's like having an additional staff person. Our collaboration and partnership with P3 has been an invaluable resource for the career readiness of our students. P3 helps us build capacity. And I think that's the key message, if I can deliver that, is that we want to build capacity. We want to continue to build and build and build until career education is part of every kid's education, early and often, all the way through until they graduate and beyond. So thank you. I'm going to pass it on to Adam.
Thanks, Christy.
Great, Christy, thank you. I think really what I'd be happy to do is just pause and yield my time for any questions to Christy, Jennifer, or I. I believe the board is in receipt of a request for funding. I'm happy to address any questions that you have specific to that or the program in general. Christy, do you want to stop? Are you done with the presentation? We don't need to see that.
I am, yeah, we can get rid of that. Thanks, Bob.
I'm trying.
Hey, Adam, I can't see you, but could you just briefly speak to the reason, the nature of the ask for the 25,000?
Absolutely.
Just for everybody
So,
to hear.
We started this, as Christy mentioned in her presentation, with the fast tracks to success. And, you know, Terry was an early proponent and supporter of that program. In the work, we had an advisory committee that helped tell us what we were doing that was working, things where we were struggling. That advisory council we put together for really the development of the P3 program. And what we promised ourselves in that committee was that we would go out and raise the funds through philanthropic grants and business investment to run the program for a minimum of 2 years, really ideally 3 years, before even hiring someone, because we knew that we would need, one, the time to really form deeper relationships within the schools. We'd need the time to build the program, that this was new. We were sort of inserting ourselves in the middle of this, and really we were committed to having that experienced educator was so that they understood the school part, but we also wanted to bring the business side to this. And over time, the advisory committee helped us. We launched the program. We raised to date just under $500,000 for the program. As recently as last week, getting a call from a statewide philanthropic, well-known organization, well-respected, that said, you know, guys, you're doing such a good job. We're gonna send you some more money because we want to see more of this. Please keep it up. The program also just recently was awarded a national recognition and a gold award by the International Economic Development Council, which is in economic development world, the largest organization. So it's great getting that recognition of the program quality. So one thing we knew is we couldn't do this forever based purely on philanthropic and grant fundraising. While we hadn't really anticipated approaching school districts for funds quite yet, the recent infusion of federal dollars into the state gave us pause to think this may be an opportunity to start to have those conversations across the region and begin that, because we really do see this as a necessary investment. You know, we see this as bringing resources to the school. We don't see this as us coming to the school to extract resources. We understand how difficult budgets are. I was a school board member for 10 years, so I've lived it. But nonetheless, we need to find ways in which to continue to bring value to schools so that you see this as the best money spent. You know, there's no retirement fund, there's no any of the pluses that go with the full-time position. We're trying to help bring that additional resource without that additional expense. So this is a request we've made to all 4 Windham County districts, $25,000 per school. And really the way we came up with this number at this point is we say it takes about $100,000 a year all in cost to run the program, including transportation, pay, and all of the extra costs that go with that. So we divided that by 4 and wanted to make an equal division. This is not a per pupil cost or anything like that. As we go forward into the future, we think that there may be further exploration of that, and happy to have any feedback from you folks.
Thanks, Ed. Any questions, folks? Or do we want to, I assume we need to make a motion? Laura?
Yep.
Yeah.
this for this budget year now, or is this for next? When is this money coming out?
Yeah, great question. Adam, when would it be coming out, or when would you need the funds?
Our proposal is for the budget you're considering now, next year's budget, so July 1, 22.
Okay, FY23 then, all right. And then it would be a continuing, ongoing 25,000?
We would like to envision that. Exactly what that looks like every year. Again, we have not developed a future request and want to do that in partnership and collaboration with the schools.
Great, great question. Go ahead,
I
Drew.
suggest that we have it as part of our budget discussion, as opposed to voting on, one item in the budget now.
I think that's a good. Sorry, go ahead, Lori.
No, just, Adam, I'm just curious to know if you had thought about dividing the amount by ADM numbers instead of equally.
We did consider that, again, for this year with our thinking, and can accuse us of being simplistic, overly simplistic here, was with the federal funding, putting this on the table for this type of conversation in front of all 4 districts to try to understand the right way to do this. Christie's time is equally divided. It may not represent the same number of students, but Christie is really spending her time equally amongst the schools. So for our thinking so far, we haven't broken this down to a student level, instead to a district level or a school level.
Great, thanks for the clarification.
Well,
Adam, I don't know if you heard, but Drew suggested, and I agree, that we should make it part of our overall budget discussion, which we will certainly be having later on today, may not finalize. Is there a particular deadline that you would need an answer by?
No, absolutely. This is, we're in your hands. Happy to come back and answer questions again if in your deliberations you feel like we didn't cover everything. Again, Jennifer Stromson, who's our Director of Programs, and Christy and myself are available at your pleasure.
Great. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. So does that make sense? Kind of make it part of the holistic approach? Okay, great.
Thank you so much for having us. We really, really appreciate it, and we love your school.
Thank you. We love you and everything that you're doing for our students. Appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Happy holidays.
Happy holidays to you.
Can I just say one thing about?
Yeah, I'm sorry, go ahead.
One of the things that I just wanted to mention, sort of the extra promotion of what the program that they've had, they inspired us to, 2 years ago, I think it was, Christy, right, to come up with the idea that we will have a 100% placement rate for graduates, either in college or careers or military or what have you. And for the last 2 years at graduation, if you guys have been, we've announced what every single kid is doing. And I think that's important. There was some stat thrown out at one of the meetings a few months ago that our college and career readiness was a 0. Some state stat somebody quoted, I remember reading about this in the minutes. We've placed 100% of our kids in something for the last 2 years. So when you think about the college and career readiness, that's the work that Christy has been doing with Terry and Sarah as well. So I just want to mention that because I think it's sometimes the data you might hear outside can be misleading, but we know that there's 100% placement. So, which implies
Bob.
career and college readiness. So.
I like that
Thanks,
number much
everybody.
better. Thank you.
Have a great night. Be well.
All right, great. So let's make that part of the holistic discussion. And without further ado, Laura, would you like to discuss the FY23 budget first, Grant?
Sure. I believe you all have the budget packet, which is, we'll start with the summary page here. Looks like this. Really, we'll go over the overview and then entertain any questions on the line item budget. So in your packet, you have a summary and a summary of expenses, and then a detailed budget and some documents to share about Journey East and the Jamaica School for next year. So right off the bat, the total budget increase is up 6.34%, $768,000.
Lori, sorry, which
Sure.
document are we looking at?
The summary one.
Oh, okay, great, thank you.
It was in the other one we passed down.
I have another packet here.
Oh, okay. I've actually got it up on the screen, but yeah. Sorry.
So the budget committee, and Bob was there and myself, met and we talked through some different items that were in the budget, what the budget committee wanted to present to the full board as a budget. And this is what it was. We came up with 2 of the items that are new, or 3 actually, small position, 4 positions or additions to the budget that are, I keep hearing the echo.
That's not mine.
Oh, it's, oh, okay,
Speaker, yeah.
sorry, in my ear. So a secondary maintenance position was added, an after-school coordinator for Leland and Gray, because Leland and Gray is not part of the 21C program at this point. We are trying to get the middle school back into that, but the grant won't be written and approved in time to know. So that could potentially, as we go down the path, be taken out, or most likely just not be spent if we do get the money for 21C. Deferred maintenance, we did look at that and to put in $150,000 of deferred maintenance that was for this year, and looking forward to next year. And then the Journey East position that you do have a document on, and you've seen this document before. We had a good discussion about that. I don't know if one of the budget, Bob wants to jump in, or a budget committee member want to talk about that at all?
I think Joe put it most succinctly, so.
We talked about it for quite a bit, and I mean, we talked about it at the board level before it came to the budget committee. And we went through the 2 scenarios, and, you know, I took the position that we owe it to Journey East to, you know, at least try and continue that program. That program has been here for a long time. It defines part of Leland and Gray. It affects every student here and the larger community. You know, if you think of it as a trip to China every other year for a small group of students, you're really not seeing the entire Journey East program. The cultural exchange, the performers that come, and the lasting relationships with, you know, people that are very different from us affect the community and the students. You know, personally, you know, I don't have a child who graduated from here who went to China as part of Journey East, but I think we may have the record for most hosting as a family. My daughter did go to China on another program, and, you know, had 4 years of Chinese and got AP Chinese credits at UVM out of her experiences, all a part of this. But, you know, my son, who spoke Spanish, still has friends from the Journey East program that he stays in touch with, and kids that we've hosted. And, you know, so to look at it with the narrow blinders that it's a 20-student trip every other year, you're you know, giving up. And lastly, you know, that program and the value that, you know, we see, and we had a lot of community members talk to us about the value that they saw in that, was actually the catalyst for the whole Immersive Learning Center to give this experience to more students. So to take away this is just, you know, we owe it to this program to try and make it work. If it doesn't work after a couple of years of experiment funding it and trying to get a grant coordinator and trying to revitalize this program again, we can gracefully bow out. We have option B. But I think we owe it to the program and you know, the history to try it. And I think we'll have a lot of public who agrees with that if we don't.
And just as a reminder, so that the 2-year proposal that's in that document talks about the idea of finding sustainability for it. So this is not a long-term idea. This is a couple of years, get someone on board who could find that alternative funding, because of the other sources have run into challenges along the way between grants and tuition students and the whole 9 yards. But this would be a way to make it sort of cost neutral in year 3 perhaps, and so that was the idea.
Go ahead, Dan.
I was one of the negatives in that. But if we would get more immersiveness out of this program, not just a couple shows, but maybe more, and more like a 1-month thing when all encompassing the district, to kind of squeeze a little bit more out of this program, hopefully to immerse all the students in all the schools.
Right, that was one of the things that you talked about is, right now it is kind of contained to Leland and Gray, except for, a little bit of outreach with those performances, but there's no reason why as a district there couldn't be curriculum planned around Journey East and the visit, the guests for the whole district.
The culinary,
Culinary,
food
costumes.
bridges the world.
Traditions, cultures,
Yes. I want more.
Yeah, I think we call it Journey East 2.0.
Yeah.
If I remember correctly.
We did.
And I think what you're describing could be part of a job description for this position once the budget is passed and the voters approve it, so on and so forth, that becomes part of the job description. What does that look like? How do they expand it?
Make it more. Involve the community in it more. Because that's what we're lacking, is the PR part of it. Maybe get more information, more out there. More community involvement.
Yep, totally agree.
Help sustainability too.
Yeah.
Any other thoughts? Oh, go ahead.
I think we talked about it in budget, but correct me if I'm wrong, but just for the public, I think this is already funded for like the next year or two, but this is to actually give us sustainability in the program. Right, don't we have 2 more trips worth?
Right, so this school year was supposed to be, would have been, I think, the end of that fund. So we would have used that up at the end of this school year. Obviously, the trip got bumped this year. The money, the 2 years, the component of it would be to do an additional year of travel, as well as the exchange component of it, the back and forth piece. But the reason that we were thinking about having the position be a full-time position was to manage the program, do that work, but secondarily to do the extension element to it. And whether it involves grant writing to find the sustainability piece of it as well. So yeah, that's the idea. So right now we really have, this would actually get us 2 more trips because we haven't spent the money for the trip that was supposed to be this year. So that's what that would do.
Right, currently the Journey East fund balance is about $138,000, so there's money there for this year's trip, and then we're moving money in from this year's budget, which will also go towards the Mongolian visit, which is the anniversary. Is that correct?
Yeah, it's also, we were supposed to have the 20th.
Yeah.
The last trip was supposed to be the 20th anniversary of the program, and so.
Anne has her hand up.
All right. Go ahead, Ann.
So on the sustainability topic, I just wanted to say there is a lot of money out there for something like this. Mandarin is a priority language for both the State Department and the Department of Defense. So there's federal money for language and culture programs that include China.
Thanks, Ann. And one quick question for you. Are you a grant writer by trade?
I was for about 20 years, and I ran a grant-making operation, like a foundation, for about 15 years.
All right, great. I think you and Lori should talk.
I think that too.
Great. All right, so that is why the Budget Committee decided to put Journey East in the budget. So I'm going to skip to the yield because that's the big news this year, and the December 1st Commissioner's Letter, which is in your other packet. So there's, I don't know if anybody had time to read through this, but basically there's a $90 million surplus in the education fund. And there are a lot of hands vying for that $90 million. So on page 2 of that document, I am using the conservative figure of $12,937, which is the highest yield I think that, I don't know, Ken, you've been in this longer than I have, probably the highest yield anybody has ever seen. That is using $45 million to basically fund the ed fund, raising the yield, which of course is going to drop everybody's tax rates. I will say this with caution because districts, this was all based on some preliminary data of how much districts were going to be increasing their education spending. And so I'm seeing in just our district larger numbers than I think what they were anticipating. So I would expect the yield to go down. So keep that in mind, which will make the tax rate go up. It really depends on what happens to the $90 million and we don't know yet. Another item I just wanted to point out on that page was, because Lindsay had asked me this question and I couldn't get the answer until it came out here. But for fiscal year 22, the average equalized per pupil spending, $17,207. So you had asked me that before. I wanted to point that out to you.
Thank you.
And you can see that the rate of growth that's projected is 4.74%. And if you flip back to the summary, I did put the cost per pupil on the summary, and you can see West River's cost per pupil increase is 14.3%. So, you can see that if all the districts start, basically using the yield to their benefit, that something will have to happen within the ed fund to stabilize that. Equalized pupils are down quite a bit, 18.53 students. This is partly in COVID, partly it's expected, and there is also in your packet, in this packet, some projections as far as enrollment numbers are concerned. They're just projections, and as we pointed out in the budget committee, that going out to 2029 it gets a little dicey when you're projecting out that far. So just, it is a trend that is happening, and it's really happening in quite a few districts this year in particular, where some had seen an increase last year in equalized pupils. Those are actually coming down as well. So people moved in and then they moved back out. So the yield is up 13.6% from the last number that we had there. And so jumping back up to the potential unified tax rate based on this budget, fiscal year 23, the 12.8 million, is actually only 3 cents over last year's unified tax rate. This is before CLA, before it reaches your town, which we do not have CLA numbers yet. They're expected probably next week sometime, and they are expected to fluctuate tremendously because of the, just the housing market the way it is. So as a comparison, because I want you to have all the information, because this really is a unique situation this year to have a yield this high. So basically, if you were looking at last year's yield and no penalty, you would be at $2.12. Okay, so that's the base, that yield is a pretty good average, I would say, or a pretty good number to use. And then if you were looking at this budget in line with the yield that was last year and a penalty, you'd be at $2.40. So just so you can see how the magic of the yield. So so to speak, right? And how that increases the budget, and of course the penalty. Now, we don't expect, while the weighting study is still being done, we don't expect the penalty to come back into play. It's not in stone that that won't happen, but that is the what the buzz is that it'll go for a while longer without having the penalty. So that is the overall summary, and I'm happy to take questions from anybody. I don't know if you've had a chance to look at the line items, and I have rulers if you don't. Do you need rulers? We have those.
Lori, on the potential unified tax rate, your FY23, that assumes the middle ground on the yield, right? Not the full 90 million. That's the
correct, the conservative number.
Conservative.
What about use yield?
Option B.
Option B.
Option B, the 12.
Scenario B.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
I know, we're always about the options, aren't we? Yeah, scenario B.
So you took the lesser favorable option. So
Right.
that way we're not so disappointed if we get the favorable option.
You know, it's reading the tea leaves. I'm hearing a lot of people talking about this $90 million, and there are a lot of people that want it, so, yeah.
Good, Jim.
So when you project next year, what is the lowest tax increase you're seeing and what is the highest? Like, what's the range we're working in with all these numbers?
So if I'm understanding your question, so the lowest for next year is the $1.84 based on this budget. And I think that the yield could probably go down to maybe 12,000, which would probably put you at $1.95 or so. I mean, I could do the math, but that's probably what you're looking at. The yield changes right up until town meeting day, so I'm not sure what it will do.
It's generally never lower than a 3% increase, though. Historically, looking at it, I mean, I think 2.8, 2.9.
Historically, from my perspective, which has only been 5 years, it has never gone down. It has only gone up.
Right.
But understanding the landscape, and basically I asked Brad at the state and said, what do you expect this to do? And he said, I expect it to go down. So that's why I want to make sure that we understand that this $1.84, almost $1.85, is probably going to change. And that is before your CLA. So that will have a significant impact on that rate as well.
Right. So at this point, I mean, really, there's a lot still not known.
Right.
It probably wouldn't be in our best interest to make any decision tonight without having that further information.
Absolutely. I think you definitely want to see what the CLAs do before you make any decisions.
And you said December 23rd?
That's what I'm hearing.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's not set in stone, but.
Oh.
Is Bob not in the meeting or you?
He is.
Emily's in the waiting room.
Oh, sorry.
All right, so I'm assuming we will
can't
not
do
make a
anything.
decision tonight, but
Yeah.
on the surface,
Yeah.
any other questions about what Lori's presented in terms of the puts and takes for what we want to have at? Or at this point, is it really just, it's too early to even say, right? You know, I think we would all dream of having a 184 unified tax rate.
It's not gonna
if
be
that
there.
if that really were to hold up.
Yeah, I mean, are there questions on the actual budget itself, the expenses, or the revenues? So, you know, I did have to reduce the Tuition a little bit more, projecting out. Other than that, this budget also does not include any fund balance being brought in to reduce the tax rate. So that is not in there. Everything else is pretty much the same for revenues. There are a few things that come in later in the year that I'll tweak as we go. But I don't foresee any major tweaks. We may take the tech ed transportation out. Or, no, never mind. I did take that out because we're not transporting kids down to the career center like we used to. So, and then for expenses, again, those were the major increases. You will see a lot of fluctuation in salaries and benefits, both up and down, and that is from, as Bob can attest to, the major change in employees last year. I think we had 50 or 60 that turned. So that's not in just Leo and Gray, but
Was that SU, right?
SUI. Sorry, clarify that. But so you will see a lot of increases and decreases in the salary and benefit lines.
Is that gonna stabilize a little bit, or is that looking like it's gonna be another crazy year of comings and goings?
It's a great question. I mean, I could say this, I'm one of the few, I think West River is probably one of the few districts in our region who hasn't had teachers resign on the spot in a given week. That's a good sign.
Yeah.
That's been rampant across the state and across the country.
Oh, yeah.
In administrators as well, just so you know. So it's just a tough year to be in education, and you know what we thought was tough last year is nothing compared to what it is this year, and so I just don't know. I mean, no one has told me they're not returning, but it's only December, so it's a wait and see kind of thing. I do think that we approached our hiring a little bit differently than we had in the past. There's a lot more local folks who've been brought on board, which I think will help stabilize that.
Yeah.
So, but it all depends on how happy people are in their job, and job satisfaction has a lot to do with things outside of yours and my control. So we do our best.
Lori, on the, we had discussed a grant writer and kind of had just talked about it a little bit now. Not in the budget, correct?
No, only, not specifically a grant writer, but the $100,000 position for Journey East will entail grant writing. So among a few other things, but I think when we were talking about it at the budget committee, you were talking about it SU-wide, I think, too. So
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the WCSU budget has been passed, but it could be brought up to the board.
We did mention a PR person.
Thank you, Dana.
Yeah.
Yes.
Talked about adding, that would help with our long-term planning, but make it more of a, kind of put ourselves out to the community a little bit more. Like they can't ignore us, we're there. So that's not included in the budget as a PR thing. That's something we'd have to think about too.
When there was the option too that we talked about that Bob had brought up that was not a big budget line item. It was more stipends to kind of almost grassroots promote ourselves, which makes a lot of sense.
Could almost be a class.
Yeah, I mean, I was thinking of a model I've used in other places, but I think it'd be worth exploring with administration and other districts that do that. But they have each building has a stipended person to work with social media and do press releases and that kind of stuff. And seems like a pretty good, they have a low budget for like Facebook promoting posts and all that, and it doesn't cost much, but those kinds of things can get you some publicity pretty quick. If we post something really cool on our Facebook page, I get a call from Chris Mays. So it happens, it works, and then they get a story, and those kinds of things make a difference. So,
It's hard for people to know we're doing really cool things when we don't tell them.
yes.
So I have a question about the Journey East. If it's already off the table for this year and we have a balance of 138K, do we hire that person ASAP and get the grants coming in sooner to make, like front run it?
The 138 is for the trip next year.
Isn't that for the general fund of the Journey East program?
It is for the Journey East for the trip. It's about 140 to 145,000 for a trip.
I think what he's asking is,
Yeah.
if you would kind of dump 100 in as well, could you start that
Oh, yes,
hiring
yes.
now?
Yes.
To
pay it
and then sort of
forward.
pay it
Yes,
forward a little bit.
absolutely.
That's what we're asking.
I also wanted to, when we were done, discussing the budget, if there's any questions on it, talk about where you stand. I do have your draft audit, and it's pretty good. It's just about finalized. So if there are any other questions about the expenses from Zoomland out there? No? Okay.
I just have one statement, not a question. What percentage did our budget go up last year?
Oh, that's a good question.
I can tell you.
Off the top of my head, you got it from last year?
I do.
I do not have that from last year. The expenses you're talking about?
It looks like in our annual report, it went from 12,035 to 12,115, $8,000 increase, 0.66%.
Yeah, less than 1%.
And it was under the COLA, and it was a very small COLA.
We got a big COLA this year.
This year we got a big COLA, and we couldn't even keep the percentage under the COLA. So we are spending way too much money, and we need to cut this number down. That's my statement, because we're spending too much money. You can't have a 6.5% increase. Even not only that, but even the SU's budget is a way lower percentage than what we have. Correct?
It was, you are correct.
See, so.
Thanks, Ken.
No, just the administration.
All right. Any other questions?
I had a Journey East question. I know we had sort of talked about Journey East 2.0 a little bit here. I'm wondering if this is it's a total of 300,000 over 2 years. Is that the number? Yeah. Okay. So I'm wondering if we should have some sort of. It's nice to say Journey East 2.0 is going to be even better and we're going to impact more people. But that doesn't mean anything without like how it's going to be impactful or like some sort of, it needs to be in every school, every student needs to have some physical interaction, more than just watching a show. I think that we can talk about Journey East 2.0 has a lot of potential, and I would agree with that. But without having some sort of measurable, exactly. I just feel like we're having this conversation like it's going to be lovely and it's all unicorns and rainbows, but I don't know what any of it means.
And I would say, like, I'm happy to sit with Jesse and try to come up with a list of some of those measurables perhaps for you guys for the next meeting. The challenge is, like, part of the unknown is, like, we want the person that you bring in to be the one who designs it. And I mean, but you can give us some guardrails for sure, and maybe that's what we're coming up with. So
Right.
like
What's the job description?
Broader context around all West River kids, pre-K through 12, and not.
Right. I don't need to know like
The
on
specifics.
Tuesday the 7th we're
Right.
going to do this. Like,
Yeah. So if you're thinking like some sort of broad goals around how to get it delivered to more kids and more of the community, I think Jesse and I could probably come up with something to show you guys for the next meeting.
Yeah.
That would just be fairly
I
broad.
would love that.
I'd like that.
Okay.
Yeah. And Bob, we even had a great discussion during the budget meeting about that, and Dana came up with a few different ideas.
Yeah, it sounds like there's been a lot of conversation. I would just,
We need to
Yeah,
get you
yeah.
all involved in it.
Yeah, I'll watch the video and I'll send it back. No.
We were starting
No, that'd be
to turn
great.
the meeting into a long-term planning committee.
Okay, anything else on the budget, draft one?
Are we going to add the $25,000 request to our draft? Because that's not in here, right?
Great point. Yep, so that 25,000 for the pathways.
I have a
Is
question
that
about it, I
included?
guess, to
Sure.
Bob. Can you give us just like a little bit of how things were before we had them on board versus how things are now?
Sure.
And how much have we gotten our $25,000 worth out of it, like that kind of thing?
For sure, in the last several years
Yeah.
since she's been on board. Yeah, and we even paid a nickel for it.
Yeah.
It's a great part.
Yeah.
Yeah, just one thing that she mentioned was sending the ninth graders on buses down to tour places. That was incredibly powerful for kids to be able to see that. And so that was all, the legwork of setting it all up, organizing the groups, paying for the buses, the whole 9 yards. Like we sent chaperones, but that was it. It was a full day, and it was pretty impactful. Those kinds of experiences, never mind the rest of the curriculum implications of it. The email that she referenced in the conversation was, and she kind of touched on it, but you might have missed it if you didn't understand what she was saying. She has offered to be, to connect any classroom teacher. So this has all been like, she talked about senior survival and co-op, and that's kind of like focused. But what the email she was referencing was any discipline in the building that wants to promote the content area as a career pathway, she will connect with someone, a business in the community, to come in and work with the teacher to develop some lessons around how to do that career, how to think about that career pathway for kids. So you have a teacher that wants to bring in an engineering firm, you want to have a science teacher bring in environmental science people, whatever area they want to think about, she will make that happen and help and provide support for the teachers. And that's the magic, you guys talk about like the magic of immersion. That's where kids start to see like, oh, this is real. Like this thing that I'm learning, which that feels so disconnected from everything else, is actually part of a thing that I like to do and I'm interested in doing. And it really creates that ownership for kids. That kind of stuff is really powerful. So that's a brand new thing that she just sent out recently, and so I sent it to my staff, and we'll see what comes of it. But I think that could be incredibly powerful.
And-
So things like that.
And I mean, I know that we also have in-house staff that work on this as well. I'm wondering how, like, I'm assuming it's absolutely not possible for them to take on this additional,
So that's a great question. So Terry, it would be the one,
Right.
probably, right? So she's the one running the co-op program and teaches the senior survival with Sarah. She's also in charge of all of our dual enrollment work. She's in charge of, she recently has gotten involved through Bill's recommendation with I'm gonna forget the name of it. Maybe Bill remembers it. Terry, you're online. What's the name of the grant that you guys are working with now?
Brilliant Pathways.
Yep, which is not a financial grant, but it's a support grant through this organization that gives her and Sarah support it's all aligned well with the P3 stuff, and sort of developing that sort of 6 through 12 career track to have some alignment for kids so that it's like a process as they go through. So all that work that Terry does, and Terry, you do a couple other things too, I'm forgetting what they are right now.
Community service.
Community service, yeah. And, yeah, I mean, that's a lot. And so just managing all those things right now, I don't think that Terry's awesome. I don't think Terry could do the work that she's doing as well without Christy's support right now. So to add that to her plate without any give is not going to be, you're not going to get the same return for that. So, I mean, I appreciate Adam's perspective around the 25,000 split evenly because it's 4 schools. Like, I get where he's coming from on that.
how much are we,
I mean, I don't know where we rank as far as like what our percent of the county would be, but I would imagine that it's well under a quarter, I know that.
Right.
I mean, so BUHS has got to be 50% on its own, I would think, right? And then the other 3 divided up, and we're the third biggest.
Yeah.
Or second smallest, depending how you want to phrase it. So yeah, I would say it's a pretty small slice. So, I mean, I don't know. I mean, I also don't know, you know, I think maybe Lori could explore this with them, or Terry could explore this with them, but like, is 25 is what their ask is? I don't know if that means that's what you have to give. So, I mean, that's their ask.
They asked for 25, we give them 10. It's like,
I mean,
no.
I think based on what I was hearing is that they're looking for some way to kind of supplement this. The grant is probably winding down that they got for the first 5 years, and they're looking for ways to supplement that service. So, I mean, there's lots of ways to look at it. Adam's probably gonna hunt me down now, but I just think it's something like, you know, that's their ask, because you have to approach this like you would any board.
Yeah.
And I just
Go ahead.
wanted to follow up on that, and for the board to be thinking, if it's something you want to invest in long-term, then definitely put it into the budget and, you know, at whatever level you decide. If it's something, and I'm assuming this is a long-term or foreseeable future investment. I know Adam talked about grant funds and ESSER funds and that type of thing, but I'm really trying to steer boards away from putting money into that then they're going to have to, in 2 years, put it into their regular budget. Because I do think that if you want to invest in it, then invest in it.
That's a good point.
Makes sense. Go ahead, Dan.
I think we ought to stay with that goal of going with it. I think it benefits our kids the most. And I like the idea of starting earlier, like she mentioned. Any way we can figure out to fund it, the goal is to get to the P3 pathway, whether it's with the, whatever Terry's doing, we keep Terry going. We figure out, put it in the budget and make it part of something that we can't eliminate out.
And I would say, I think 25 grand, I think for a service, like you couldn't hire someone for 25 grand to do what she's already doing, never mind the cost of the other things like transportation and those kinds of things as well. So I mean, in that regard, it's a bargain for what you're getting.
I wonder, sorry to jump in,
No,
I wonder if
that's
it's worth waiting a little and seeing what other districts do, if there's other like people that are like super on board, or if there's other thoughts of changing the dollar amount and dividing it differently possibly. I understand the ease of divvying it up 4 ways, and it may not be that her time is probably not divided based on how many students it is. I understand that, but it's probably also not equal.
I think another good question for you guys to consider is what happens if we commit a certain amount and other districts don't?
Right.
Yeah.
Or vice versa. Like what does that do? How does that change that interaction? Something to explore maybe with Adam.
Are we on the hook for the whole 100 grand?
Probably not, but.
Not unless we sign the dotted line.
So I think what
But
I'm
she
hearing,
needs to be funded.
Lindsay, are you comfortable putting in for now, just kind of plug and play for the budget wise, just putting in the 25,000, but at the same time track towards seeing if there's a possibility of any kind of ADM adjustment?
I would say I personally would love to have something in the budget for this. I don't know how that should look. If we say, okay, we'll put 25 in there right now, I don't know what then what? Like, what's our time frame? What's the when do we change that or not change that? And are we just going to fall off a cliff and leave it because we fell off the cliff?
We have until January 24th we've got a little more than a month to maybe figure out the ADM piece of it. Yeah, go ahead, Drew.
So in a week, we're gonna get CLAs back, and you're gonna be realizing that, this could be a 25% tax increase somewhere.
That's another
Then we're
piece
gonna
of
have
it
to
too.
start trying to whittle things away, so
Right.
I wonder if it makes sense to wait on discussing what we put in the budget until we see what the actual kind of base budget implications are to each of our towns. I'm a little scared of the CLA. So I think especially
Jamaica potentially, yeah.
Jamaica
Yeah.
is gonna get Yeah, houses
I
were
think
selling
towns
at
in Newfane we're gonna be. will be-
200% of value.
What they were really
So-
worth.
Yeah,
Brookline only takes one house sale to throw off their
So-
wholesale
Yeah.
because they're so small.
right. No, totally understand that. And I suppose there's two ways to look at it, right? You could, let's put in everything that we really want, and then we find out CLA, then, yeah, then we start pulling away. So do we want to know everything that, if we wanted all of this, great, oops, now we got CLA information, now let's kind of.
See how big we can make the number?
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
I can tell you that the 25,000 is less than a penny.
It's not going to move the needle, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
It's on our radar.
Right,
But we may be looking to remove $1 million
Right.
when the CLA numbers come back.
Well,
Let's see about that.
I was just gonna say what you said, Al. I think put it in now, put in the $25,000 placeholder and see what
See what it
happens to
looks
the
like.
CLA. Because, I mean, if we're looking to trim and we've already pre-trimmed, we're gonna be cutting into the core harder. You know, we might as well build what we actually want and believe our kids need now. And then if we can't defend that after the CLA comes out, we can start backing off.
Going back to your Charlie Brown tree, Dana.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Ann.
I agree. I think we should put it in provisionally. It seems like an extremely valuable program and we get a lot of bang for our buck.
Thanks, Ann. All right, I mean, it's, as she said, it's in provisionally. Anything that we put in here. Do we also want to just put in a plug number for the social media stipend that Dana was talking about?
For PR?
For PR, yeah.
Well,
I like Dana's idea of making it a class.
project-based learning.
Yeah,
Marketing.
yeah.
Yeah,
Marketing
great.
pay somebody to run that.
Who wants to teach marketing?
Part of senior survival is a cool infographic.
You get an A if you
Now go tell
make
everybody
more money than your father.
I mean, let's be clear, they're probably better at social media than any of
Than
us,
any
so.
of
Very true.
Yeah, they probably are. I mean,
Is there a question for me out of this?
Yeah, I
What's the
guess
question?
we could,
well, we pay Suzanne Paul a certain amount of stipend for
right.
the thing.
Is that expandable and could it?
That could be expandable. Anything's expandable. It just gets reduced, right?
Well, I don't know if she's expandable.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the other question, is whether she wants to continue that role.
The benefit of the building-based person is that they're in the building.
Yes.
Yeah.
So like I'm walking around taking pictures of stuff and posting, like,
huge.
it's instant. Like, you don't have to send something to somebody who's then gonna like, well, what was that about? And I have to write a text and send it to them, and it's like, if you're gonna do that, you're gonna.
Who's in it more
do
than
yourself.
students?
True, I mean, I don't disagree with that in concept. But keep in mind, like, our social media presence is is a public-facing thing.
Mm-hmm.
And so
Yeah,
any-
you need
any-
to filter.
has to have rules.
Anybody
Yes.
that's posting there
Needs
is
oversight.
speaking for me, for you,
Yeah.
for Bill, and, there has to be a level of, I won't say censorship, but I'll say oversight. That's a better
Oversight.
word. On making sure that that's appropriate and that that's going in the direction you want to go, and it fits the mission, the vision, all that. So with guidance, someone could do, students could do that probably, but you're giving them access to our social media, which passwords, and, I mean, just something to think about.
It's real-world stuff.
That it is.
Could it be a co-curricular stipend? Kind of like a
For
wellness
an adult, you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I was suggesting initially, was that each building, you're paying someone X number of dollars to maintain a social media presence in the building. And you develop a job description, explains what that looks like. They then take over the management of all those platforms. And, obviously I think, well, I don't know, you'd have to think about how you want to do that. There's models out there for schools that do that currently. Does JVS need as much of a presence as Leland and Gray does based on the number of kids and the activities that are happening? Probably not. It's like, can you have different size stipends? I mean, those are the things you have to think about. But my sense is, just to throw a number out there, that for some 10 to 15 grand, you could have stipends for 4 people pretty easily that would do that with a job description as part of the co-curricular. contract.
I like it. Let's do it.
All right, let's plug it in.
Okay.
Get a hand now.
Go ahead, Ann.
Could you just recap, why is this needed?
Okay. The social media stipend?
Yes.
Yeah, so it would be, I mean, Bob could probably explain
Yeah,
better than
well,
I. Go ahead.
It came out of the conversation at the budget subcommittee meeting because we were talking about how educators and school folk are not known for doing a highly effective job of promoting our own greatness. And so the idea is like around community support, whether it's for a long-term plan, whether it's for a budget, whether it's for just promoting our program and to get our tuition students up. There's a whole lot of reasons why having that presence out there and promoting the school and the district is really important. And so we were just talking, sort of spitballing ideas about how you could do that and what it might look like. So this was one of the ideas we talked about, but it was really about promoting in a way that either we don't have time for or we don't have the expertise in how to do it, really. So, but there's people who do, and some people are good at writing press releases and things like that, and can do the more formal side as well as the social media. It wasn't really just a social media front, it was really designed to be more of a press, management of our forward-facing self.
Okay, so like public engagement.
You got it. That's a much better phrase.
How we speaking?
It's
Joe's muted.
He's not muted.
He's
He's
muted.
just up
Howie-
on the hill with crappy internet.
Yeah. Howie, we can't hear you if you're trying to talk. I don't know if your mic's off.
I have to learn to sign.
Oh. It shows you're unmuted.
Just let him know.
We got nothing.
Yeah, sorry.
He's decided how he doesn't
He's
talk.
giving up.
Poor Howie, up on the hill.
He needs another hamster in the wheel.
His
Tighten
baud
the string in the
baud
game.
rate is off.
We need to get this stuff fixed in this state.
It's coming.
Oh, good.
It's coming.
It's coming.
I heard that we need a fix about this in the state. It's coming. We're working on broadband.
Thank you.
All right. Thanks, Emily.
Thanks to the federal government.
Go ahead,
Do you
Laurie.
want me to go ahead on?
Yeah,
with
sure.
Okay, so I just wanted to update you on where you stand financially. We talked about Journey East with the 138,000 currently, or ending fiscal year '21, and taking out the 300,000 that you were going to use for this fiscal year. Your fund balance will be 592,000. So, you know, that's good to have in the bank and not necessarily need it. We'll see when the CLAs come out, but not necessarily need it for this year. I do also expect for there to be a surplus this year as well. So there were a few positions that were not hired because they couldn't be hired, and so that will give us a surplus at the end.
Are you far enough along?
So our
to give
fund
us that
balance, sorry.
I'm not far enough along to give you a very good projection yet.
So our fund balance could be more than it was last year, even though.
I
we used
anticipate it to be
three.
more.
Yeah.
I just
Wow.
can't tell you how much yet.
Yeah, that's good. Go ahead, Drew.
Any way we can take care of some of our deferred maintenance sooner than later?
That's what I was saying.
Mm.
And that's a board decision to be made. That's operational surplus, so you could do that. You know, again, it may be that this $150,000 of deferred maintenance that's in this budget here may need to be pulled out again because of CLAs and tax rates, but you do have money that you could use here.
That's a great way to
Do
do
it
it.
now versus later.
Did we not do that last year?
I don't think we ended up there last year. No.
Didn't we last year take 300 grand and?
Buy that.
Buy
Yeah,
that.
we did.
Yes, we
Yeah,
did.
We're not doing that again.
No.
Drew, that's a great idea. Is the 150 specific to anything, or is it just kind of a general?
No, I didn't include that in your packet because I thought they were getting a little overwhelming, but there is a capital needs assessment and the numbers came right off of that for all of the schools, with the exception of Jamaica, because Greg hadn't gotten to that one yet, but.
I saw that in budget committee, I think.
Yeah, I did have it in the
Yeah,
budget
yeah.
committee, yeah.
Yeah.
So that's where it was 146, I just rounded up.
Oh, right, okay,
Yeah,
right.
that's what, you're remembering that.
Yeah, sorry.
Greg has a plan. He has it divvied out pretty good
Yeah.
to when what gets done.
Well, I think that's a great
Priority
idea
based.
to do it within this fiscal year, if that's possible. It's-
I will give Greg the thumbs up to get some things done then.
I mean,
think
does
there's
everybody
a-
agree? I don't want to
yeah,
put words in
let's-
everybody's.
We should probably have a motion on that.
Well,
Yeah, let's-
do
yeah,
we need
let's-
to know what the amount of projected surplus is, so we can kind of look at it that way?
Yeah.
How much surplus we're going to have for this year?
Yeah, projected, I mean, not held to, but an idea of,
Yeah, probably the 300,000 that you put in will
Yeah.
probably be surplus,
wonderful.
Wow,
so.
that answers my question.
I do need a motion.
So I'll make a motion that we spend $150,000 of this year's surplus or anticipated surplus towards deferred maintenance.
I will second that.
Any discussion, motion makers?
Yes.
I like that. Any other discussion?
And
All
Greg's
right.
not even on the call, huh?
He'll be happy.
You'll be excited.
All right, so let's see, hopefully we can do this unanimously. So let's just go with a thumbs up from the audience. And if we have any negatives, I think that's everybody, right? All three?
Mhm.
All right. Everybody thumbs up here? All right, looks like we are unanimous. No need for a roll call. Unanimous vote passes. Thank you.
Greg will have a good
Drew,
Christmas.
great idea.
You're texting him now?
I'll text him now.
Get those bathrooms done.
Yeah, start it now.
Sledgehammer's
We're waiting at 8.
I mean,
He's got a
we've
lot on his
deferred,
plate
and
right
deferred, and
now.
deferred.
No more Home Depot colors.
And leave it in the budget, we can always trim it out if we have to, but we've deferred maintenance for 10 years. $150 is, or 150,000 is a drop in the bucket.
Yeah.
Like, that doesn't line out the
Years and
150 that's
years.
in the budget. It
No,
just
it's over $1
gets us
million
going.
that is
Yeah.
willing to do that.
It's a start.
I mean, we can kick that can now if we need to, and we've done something, you know, we've got our Band-Aid, but
That's good to
goodness
know.
knows, the buildings need it.
So keep that in there. Okay.
I would.
Till next meeting, anyway.
Yeah?
Yeah, until we see the CLA.
We have a month. All about the CLA. All right. Anything else, Lori?
That's it for me.
Great discussion, great ideas. Thank you, Drew. Appreciate it.
Ended on a positive note.
Yes.
This budget discussion.
Very positive.
Very positive.
Yeah.
Well done, team.
So, on to long-term planning. So this is kind of a two-parter. I know that long-term planning committee, you had some stuff that you wanted to wrap up by the end of the year. Just wanted to see if there's anything you had to.
So we met again and went over some additional information from Bill. We talked about the wildly declining enrollment numbers and how we had the conversation about how fears of feeling a little crowded right now were very quickly going to be not an issue based on those updated numbers. And we left it at that to see what the rest of the board wants to do.
All right, thanks, Lindsay. So the officers, Joe, myself, and Mike, we met after coming out of the last meeting. So let's catch everybody up. We met with a potential facilitator. His name is Les Edinson, and we actually did end up hiring him. And we will start work, but not until February. February 7th is the first meeting that we targeted. Initially, we were thinking January, but then following on this last discussion we had, let's get the budget wrapped up first before we actually jump into that. So that's what we plan on doing, is meeting with him as a full board, obviously, on February 7th. And so kind of process-wise, every first Monday of the month will be dedicated to discussing future planning. And the process will be that the officers will meet between meetings. So if, for example, if the meeting is on February 7th, we'll meet a week, 2 prior to that to discuss with Les. And at some point we'll have previous meeting discussion or actions that would need to be taken. We'll talk about that. What do we need to put into the upcoming agenda? What actions have been taken? Where are we at? So all the tasks will be laid out at the meetings, and the public will be involved every step of the way. So that's kind of process-wise. And as we've all kind of talked about, we want to start with the end in mind, the end goal. If it takes a month, if it takes 2 months, if it takes 3 months, we will lay that out, whatever that end goal might be. The big, and it needs to be something, it can't be so narrowed down a rabbit hole. It needs to be kind of broad and enough that we can adapt and change to it. Because similar to what Lori was talking about with the ADM 8, 9, 10 years out, that's just a projection. But 10 years from now, we want to know something broad, like, do we want to run a K through 12 system here? Or do we want to tuition out? We will task the administration with finding out these big, broad concepts, where we want to go in a big way. And then from there, we can start to fill in short-term, intermediate, and other goals as we go along the path. So that's step one, right? So, and again, that could be a month, 2 months, 3 months. We'll hash it all out. It could involve surveys, family surveys, community surveys, and then, we'll present all these concepts. And then we're targeting, kind of May, June-ish to have a path. And we'll have that path, and we'll have the full input of everybody, all the stakeholders. And from May on, that's when the planning would start, right? So the goal would be to have, by budget season, a plan, and then a plan of action for the budget that would involve everything that we've discussed and decided more broadly, and then narrowed down in a shorter term FY24 version. My other officers, is there anything I missed or anything you wanted to add to that?
That was pretty good.
Yeah, I think you did a really good job of summing it up. The one thing I will say is that, the facilitator that we've engaged is we definitely told him, we gave him the historical perspective and what we've gone through and what he was stepping into. And he was still willing to work with us. And he has a really calm, easy demeanor. I think he's he's going to be a good guy for this job. I really enjoyed working with him just in the one call,
I agree.
Yeah. All right. And yeah, as Joe, I'll just tack on to what Joe said. Definitely the process is going to, and already has, elicit hard conversations. There are definitely going to be some hard conversations that we'll have to get through to get to where we want to be. And kind of with that in mind, and I know that the long-term planning committee took a lot of heat unfairly in terms of directions. Where do we want to go? Where do we want to head? And I want to be crystal clear and perfectly clear with everybody that we may look at certain things that make people uncomfortable. We may look at what does it mean to tuition out kids. I want everybody to understand that this is a process. We will be looking at it, but it doesn't do us any good not to look at things that could potentially be painful or discussion-wise. So with that understanding, we're not making decisions, we are looking at options. And again, some of those may not be to everybody's liking, but know that as we're going through the process, we're not putting it in stone until we have full stakeholder involvement, discussion, and at the end of the day, yes, it will be up to the board to make that decision. Will everybody be happy at the end of the day? No. But we will do whatever we can, the best that we can for the students of West River Valley. All right. That's all I got to say about that.
One question.
Yes, sir.
The old committee, we are dissolved officially, done? Or are we just added in and added everybody else? Have expanded?
Yeah, we are, I think at this point, we're just going to add, we're going to have everybody else, full board, with the facilitator at this point.
Because I was just going to say, might want to let Suzanne know, or the people that put out the thing that the meetings are no longer happening at the town hall.
Yes, so it can be updated on the website, you mean?
Be updated on the website. So the public stops showing up and I can turn in the key.
That is a great point. Yes, please.
You know, because I'm sure they're probably wanting the key and the public's waiting for a meeting.
Yes, let's officially do that for now. It doesn't mean that we couldn't at some point say, hey, let's segment off. But I think for the facilitation piece, it makes most sense to have everybody involved.
Yeah.
But yes, again, we could have a committee.
Because that's, some of the angst that the public has is we're not letting them know, if we're coming or going. So we'll call this phase 1 done. Call the next one phase 2.
Yep, exactly. And certainly I'm glad you brought up Suzanne's name because we definitely want to still continue to keep her involved in the communication and the engagement. She's done a great job. If you're out there, Suzanne. Nope. So yeah, definitely want to have her involved in that process. So, great. Any other questions? All right. Well, thank you. Let's move on to old business. Wow, look at this, 8:45, we're right on time.
Approve the minutes of November 15th meeting.
Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
All right, any discussion? Seeing none, we can get a thumbs up from our Zoom audience. If Howie can hear me. There we go, and from around here. All right. Motion carries unanimously, if I can still talk. Thank you. Principals reports, and to this, we are adding what, Dana?
The winter sports agenda. Or the winter sport, yeah.
Update.
Yeah, what's going on? Update. But I want to know the agenda. Game plan.
Greg, if you want to go ahead and give your, thank you.
Hey everybody, so earlier today I sent you kind of the process of the last 2 months in setting up winter sports. The board was looking for us to set up a traditional winter sports activities, given the fact that transportation and COVID were certainly going to impact our ability to carry it out as we traditionally do. So that board report really just kind of went through a few things. It just talked about the process of surveying staff, surveying parents, finding out which student interests people wanted to go to, and then finding if transportation was possible by working with Greg and West River bus company and how many buses and how many drivers they had available. So once we had that, we went to go see if the locations were actually going to work, if they're going to be open. So it seems like all that is doable. And then we know in the last 2 weeks of just education and just living in Vermont that we have come into a hotbed of COVID cases and our schools have been affected. The good news is that we've had the ability to do some test to stay and keep some kids in class. The backside of that and the downside of that is only a certain percentage and a very small percentage of our student population has the consent to do test to stay. So we're running into a whole lot of different things that we're able to do, but we also have some reservations about whether or not we would like to continue on. And we're just looking for the board to direct us, giving all the information I have in the board report, if you want us to carry through or to backtrack and create something different for winter sports. And this is just for elementary school, as Bob has his own unique situation with the high school being that they're able to transport themselves and have their own self-contained buses. So that's kind of where we are, but I'm open to answer any questions that you may have. Unfortunately, Scotty isn't here. He's with a medical thing with his dad in Ohio tonight. So he said I can fully speak for him and talk about Newbrook and Jamaica and their own unique circumstances.
Thanks, Greg. Go ahead, Dana.
Craig, if it's my understanding personally that some families have already made investments in monetary funds in obtaining passes. So if we forego winter sports or the GIST programs, aren't these families not going to be able to get back that money?
Yeah, Dana, that's a great question. That was actually part of the board's direction for us in November, was to do our best to include GIST. Knowing that winter sports and skiing and Stratton offered such benefits for kids and families to go skiing. And what we found out during that discussion with Stratton is that families who are still able to purchase GIST passes and actually go up to do a little bit of training were still able to use those passes, whether or not schools formally had a winter sports day. So if they did invest, they'd still be able to use it on the designated GIST days.
Lindsay?
I would like to know, so there's going to be for the elementary schools, I believe it was a bus running to Brattleboro for ice skating and then a bus running to Grafton, right? You must have numbers of how many students on each of those buses? And what were those numbers?
Yeah, so that's right. So there's going to be a bus that goes from Newbrook School and then picks Townsend students up, and then we go to Grafton for the Grafton Ponds. And then we start a bus at Townsend, pick folks up, and then we stop at Newbrook to go to the rink. While we have just about all of them in, as far as like Newbrook students and Townsend students, there's a fluctuation of maybe like 3 or 4 that could work. Going to the rink is about 60, and then going up to Grafton is about 40.
And how many 6 days?
Oh, I'm sorry, what was that?
How many total days is it? There's 6 total winter sports days?
Yeah, actually we've landed on 5. So there's gonna be 5 winter sports days. And again, this is just for the elementary school. And the reason for that is that there's a demo day that Stratton does, that when high schools buy the pass and their season passes, they're still able to go skiing, where they shut it off as a GIST day for the elementary schools. So instead of just running Stratton to go up there and trying to do something else or canceling, or I'm sorry, to not go up to Stratton and try to work something out, we just said we'll have 5 opportunities and just treat that demo day as a regular day of school.
And what's the last question, I think, maybe for now? What's the length, how long's the bus ride?
You know, I haven't been on a bus ride from Townsend to Brattleboro, but I do know that it takes 25 minutes for me in a truck who goes a little bit over the speed limit, about 25 minutes to get down to Green Street. And so it would be a little bit more, and then stopping to pick up Newbrook and then dropping them off and actually being in the parking lot, because I have gone to winter sports before. I would look at about 35, 40 minutes as a total trip between picking kids up and waiting and then exiting the bus. And I've never gone up to from Newbrook to Grafton before, so I can't give you an estimation on that. You guys will probably have a better estimation on that.
Yeah.
So I would like to make the motion if we need it, that we do this. It seems reasonable to me to have 5 different days with a 30 to 40 minute bus ride with kids wearing masks so that they have the opportunity to go be physical outdoors. I think the benefit to that is huge, and we owe it to our students to give them that.
And parents that don't want to participate don't have to.
And anybody who is uncomfortable with it obviously would be free to opt out. So I think that we're giving people the choice here, and it's an amazing opportunity for our students to go do something really good for their bodies.
All right.
That was a motion.
I was just going to say, did you get that motion?
There it was.
Do we have a second? Yeah, I was going to say.
Drew said.
Drew seconded. Okay. Yep. Craig, did you have a hand up? Sorry.
I appreciate the winter sports sentiment, and again, as I mentioned that Scotty isn't available for this, there is that section that has the nurses' concerns, and when both of the district nurses and COVID coordinators have strong concerns, I think it's worth a little bit of a discussion and consideration. I know that you guys have looked at it, and but for the people out there on the Zoom world or in physically in with you guys right now, those nurses have said that things will be a slippery slope and a domino. If a domino falls, it's going to be pretty steep. And we don't necessarily know if we're going to have all the equipment needed to do test and stay, the mixing of pods. I just want to talk about the medical stuff. If anybody wants, I mean, Drew is a great person to talk about the medical stuff. I think he may have a hand up or something. But it would be, if I didn't talk about protecting kids against COVID and protecting kids and providing them with an education, I don't think I would be thoroughly doing my job.
Thanks, Craig. All right, from the motion makers, any discussion?
I think getting outside and the benefits of encouraging our students to be physically fit and enjoy being outdoors even in the winter is going to be, the health benefit of that is going to outweigh the risk. And it may end up being, hopefully not, but the chance that it does result in some contact tracing that's difficult to do, I will desperately hope that doesn't happen, but I also trust that they can do a good job of it. So I know that they're real good at their jobs, so.
Drew?
I know, the vaccination rate is pushing 80%. So, we have a good high level of protection in our students. We also are requiring our students to wear masks. These students are participating in other activities. So we talk about contact tracing. These kids don't live in a bubble. So these kids are playing in sports leagues and hockey and Brattleboro and basketball teams where the contact tracing is far more complicated than it is riding on a bus within our own school district. And though I appreciate the amount of work that the nursing staff has to do the contact tracing and the testing to stay, there's plenty of opportunities for these kids to get exposed to COVID outside of school. That's far more complicated to control than a pretty straightforward bus ride where you are making them wear masks. Most of these other contexts, they're not. And a masked person that is vaccinated is not an exposure. So, if you look at what an exposure is, the definition of an exposure, those kids on the bus that are vaccinated with masks on don't need to be contact traced at all because they're not exposed.
Our COVID protocol is pretty strong These kids shouldn't even be in the sports in for that day. If they have signs and symptoms of COVID, they shouldn't even be in school. So how is one gonna suddenly, it's noon, we're going skiing, I got COVID? Unless it's showed up then. But I think we do a pretty good job. Our nurses and administration have got a pretty good nailed down policy. I think we can get away with it. Good.
I'd just like to echo that I'm definitely in support of continuing this. There's, as Drew mentioned, was the point I was going to make earlier that came to mind is, wait, all these kids are doing outside activities anyways. There's already exposure possibilities. In my mind, this isn't increasing it by any exponential percentage in any way. There's other school districts around. They're still implementing their winter activity programs. I did check on that to see what other local places were doing, and some aren't, but there's still quite a few that are trying to incorporate this because they see the value in a program like this.
Thanks.
Thanks. Yeah, I'm going to try to continue to get into a dialogue. Just to give all the information. So it's a two-way street. So if students are going out and not living in a bubble, they're having additional exposure to people in the community and then having that ability to bring it back. So, I mean, it's a two-way. Yes, we can control our own bubble inside of a school, during school function, on a school bus, inside school pods. But if they're going out and bringing it back in, that's one thing. The other thing I want to bring up is that if a student or students or a class does test to stay, again, that percentage of students that have parental permissions is really small. So we'll have to just kind of like beef that up a little bit. And any student who is doing test to stay is then not able to do winter sports until they're cleared of COVID, because they still should be quarantining. So if there is an exposure and there is a quarantine and there is a test to stay, those students are going to be missing out some way, somehow. So just as we keep talking, I keep thinking about these discussions that I've been having with the nurses and then with Mr. Tabachnik and even with Bob and Jordan. So.
And that, what he just said about the test to stay piece is consistent with sports. So you can test to stay in school. If you're a close contact, you can test to stay, but it doesn't authorize you to participate in interscholastic competitions where schools are mixing. You can practice with your team because it's enclosed as part of the bubble, but you can't participate in a game at this point. That may change, but it's at this point. So that's what he's just described, consistent with the sports world as well, the high school, middle school level.
So basically what we're doing is mini violating that policy.
What do you mean?
We're taking two different schools in the district, putting them on one bus, bringing them to one place.
What he's saying that if a student was in the test to stay protocol, they wouldn't be eligible for winter sports. They wouldn't be able to participate in it. They'd have to go home at 11:30 during the time that they're in the test to stay. And for those who don't know, that's could be a very short period of time, a week or so, depending on the exposure dates and all that kind of stuff. And those are only for unvaccinated kids who has an exposure in school who are asymptomatic. So it's very narrow. And as Craig pointed out, they have to have permission from their parents to participate in it. Otherwise, they have to quarantine anyways. So it's a pretty narrow group, but those kids would not be allowed to participate in that winter activity program. That's what you were saying, right, Craig?
Good, Craig.
Yeah, and he's not wrong, right? Because suddenly we're taking Newbrook kids and Townsend kids and putting them on the same bus. The difference with high school is you're already mixing those kids anyways, and they're already one pod. It's just a very large pod. But suddenly when we're doing Townsend and Newbrook, now we're spacing it out to two schools. And so if we're going to be doing test to stay because there's an exposure in a nearby seat, front, back to the side, now we're running test to stay and two different schools and maybe with two different grades. So there's just a lot of what ifs and yeah buts, and if we do this then that, but there's all those little fine details that we're starting to uncover. The more we plan, the more we uncover of why it's probably not the best, despite really supporting winter sports and going through everything.
Thanks, Greg. Go ahead, Ann. Oh, I'm sorry. Ann and then Drew.
I just wanted to mention that when we talked about the winter sports program at the last meeting, no one had ever heard of the Omicron variant. So I just want to say that the situation has changed significantly. I love the winter sports program, but it makes me very uneasy what's going on right now with the pandemic.
Thanks, Ann. Drew?
So I guess I'm curious what your definition of that you're using for exposure is. If the kid is in the front seat of the bus wearing a mask, like who is the exposure? Because based on guidance, there is no exposure with two masked people.
What Craig just described on buses is just the seats directly around the person.
Even if they're masked?
Oh yeah, because they have to be masked on buses anyways.
So is that an SU, or is that, where does that come from? Because it's not consistent with the CDC guidance.
Well, I wish Jordan was here with us, but my assumption is that's VDH related, based on the stuff that they put out. But Craig, do you know off the top of your head?
Yeah, I don't know the exact source, but as the administrator of a school who has had to make phone calls at 8 o'clock at night because they're close contact on a bus with both of them wearing masks before, because that is what has been told us what I had to do by our COVID coordinators. It's happened probably about 5 times. So they could have been off all that rest of the time and telling me to contact parents because that student was sitting next to her behind. But that's what we have now. And I really liked Ann's point about Omicron not being a thing at the last meeting. I'm home right now with 2 vaccinated folks. One of them has COVID from a school, just spreading right through. And now that school is shut down within a week and a half. So it spreads quickly, it spreads fast, and even in vaccinated folks.
Good, man.
Yeah, I was just going to suggest that at whatever point you guys have your motion, whenever you take a vote on it, I wondered whether, given some of the facts that, this is winter sports is coming in after the holidays, it's coming in with the Omicron, we don't know, whether a global motion that says we're doing this doesn't allow flexibility from Bill or anyone else to modify as the situation changes. And I wonder whether it'd be wise to have a friendly amendment that might give some flexibility to, whether it's to Bill, whoever you want to designate it to make final decisions in the moment if circumstances change. Just, it could be a valuable way to kind of approach this rather than having a global, we're plowing through no matter what, and there's no board meeting and stuff's changing rapidly and we don't know what to do. We don't know. Things come up all the time with this, so. Just thinking of that, having sort of an escape hatch might be useful.
Doesn't Bill already have like the emergency powers because we passed we give you permission to do anything you want to do rule, right? I mean.
That's what we call it.
loosely.
In other words, this could be overridden by it.
I mean, I'm feeling pretty confident that if there was like some drastically unsafe change where something was hugely different, that we could quickly call an emergency meeting should we need it or not need it. Bill would have the authority. Am I wrong in that?
I don't think you're wrong.
That's what yeah.
But to Bob's point, it may be wise just to throw something in there with that caveat where that's if circumstances change or.
I feel like that's awfully loose.
Yeah.
I'm not comfortable with that.
Okay.
If it changes, we can call an emergency meeting.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Al, I think the situation has already changed for the worse. Okay, since we started this discussion. And I believe we have Bill on here, so why don't we ask Bill?
What are we asking, Bill?
Get a little bit quiet.
What's his take on this situation with, a higher spread and.
He's unmuted. Go ahead, Bill.
No, I think Craig laid out the situation perfectly. I think that Drew laid out the realities of contact tracing. It's a 3-foot radius bubble. I don't think you can predict exactly what things are going to look like in January and February. I think Lindsay mentioned that if conditions are drastically changed, that we will react, whether that is an emergency meeting or if it's necessity for safety of students. Yes, I would use that authority to make those decisions, but this is a once a week thing, so I believe there is time. I encouraged Craig and Scotty to simply provide the current situation to the board and just reaffirm that this is the path we wanted to go down without anything other than just trying to provide the facts of the planning of the situation. Just wanted to make sure that the board had an opportunity to exactly what Lindsay made as a motion, that 5 days is something we want to move forward with, but that we will always put the students' safety as situation change and things happen and overwhelm schools. We just wanted to make sure that you had the most recent feedback from the task that was given at the last meeting, which was to plan for winter sports. And so I appreciate that a motion was made and seconded and you're having this discussion. But if conditions change dramatically in 3 or 4 weeks, we're going to make the appropriate calls, whether that is me going out on a limb and making that call because of a time constraint, or whether we have enough time in which to have an emergency board meeting. The purpose was just to say we did the task that you told us to do, and here is what we found out, and can you just reaffirm that you want us to move forward?
Perfect. Thanks, Bill. Appreciate it. Danny, you had a question?
I was just curious, if it's getting so bad, how come we don't go remote? So let's
Don't
not
say
do that and kind of see what we can do here. Because if you make it out like it's going to be worse, then we shut the whole show down. Everything. So, can we go forward, Craig?
Yeah, totally. I stick by Dana. This might be the catalyst for having that, right?
Yeah.
This could be the outbreak that suddenly sets schools and people back where we don't have enough test to stay kits, and or teachers, as my wife and son's school has, where they had 1 teacher in today. So it just may be the start of it. And again, as we're just kind of laying out the facts, and we just want to kind of let you know. And we have 5 bus drivers and 5 buses. And if one of those bus drivers gets sick, we're going to have to figure out something else. There are the facts. If you want us to move forward, we'll support that, and we're ready for it.
Go ahead, Emily.
Thank you.
It sounds pretty clear to me, and reading this memo, that there are some serious concerns from our administration about moving forward with winter sports. And I just want to lay that out there and say that I take that very seriously. And while I recognize the value of winter sports, who doesn't, right? But I don't think that the value of winter sports should trump the health and safety of our kids. So I'm not suggesting one way or the other, but it sounds to me like the administration doesn't support moving forward with this. And I guess I would ask for clarity around that. I mean, I read the memo and I read what the nurses said. This is health, right?
Go ahead, Bill. I think
Yeah. No, I would say, Emily, I think we're trying to be very clear. We're not recommending one way or the other because we can't predict what it's going to look like in January and February. And, our kids 5 through 11 are getting vaccinated. And as Craig pointed out, at Townsend, we're getting close to that 80%. And so, on January 6th, I don't know what the world's going to look like. I don't know how many vaccinated and unvaccinated test to stay kits we're going to have. So I find it difficult for us to give you a yay or a nay. I just wanted us to be as clear as possible that this is the task that was put forward and these are the facts that we found. But I can't predict, and I don't think my colleagues can predict what it's going to look like in 30 days. We will react as things change, but our task was to create a plan and be upfront about what we found out and to share it with you all. But I don't know what the right decision to do is. I don't know. So we want to just make sure that we give you the facts and let you guys have this discussion.
Thanks, Bill. Go ahead, Emily.
I just want to ask for clarity around one thing then. When we talked about saying who gets to make the decision when things shift, right? So I just want to make sure that if this is moving forward today, it doesn't require an emergency board meeting or something like that. I really believe that the health and safety of our students and our staff all need to come first. And I would hope that our administrators can make that decision at the drop of a hat, whether it's before the first winter sports day or midway through or at the last one, that they can say, this isn't safe and we're not going to do it anymore. So I would like that reassurance.
So I would just say that I have the authority right now to make those types of decisions based on the conditions on the ground. So if we don't have enough bus drivers, we're not doing it. If we don't have enough teachers, we're not doing it. If we don't have enough kids to go because we have an outbreak or a cluster and we talk to the VDH, then we're going to factor that into making those decisions. But I just don't know what that's going to look like. But yeah, I feel very confident taking in the information on a case-by-case, situation-by-situation basis and making the decision that is in the best interest of the current situation. But I just can't predict what that's going to look like on a week-to-week basis.
Yeah, I'm not asking for a prediction. I'm asking for, if something happens, do you feel confident in having the authority? And it sounds like you do.
I do.
Great. Go ahead, Mike.
I mean, we have basketball games and other sports going on now. So to me, it seems like it's kind of a similar exposure. Like if the kids are on a bus going to a basketball game, they're playing another school, they're on the bus coming back. We're already doing it now. So that's just my 2 cents. I think it's worth it for the kids.
Can you guys hear me?
Yeah. Hey, go ahead, Howie.
I just want to, my 2 cents on this is really the controlling factor is what's going on in the hospitals. You can't really, I think it's safe to run winter sports program if the hospitals are overflowing and the ERs don't have room for a kid with a broken leg. To me, that's the cutoff point. Short of that, I'm game for running programs with masks and vaccinations.
Thanks, Howie.
Thank you.
Did I miss you out there?
It's kind of gone by.
Is it? It's over. Okay. All right. Is everybody comfortable in voting now? Are we good? Okay. I will start with my friends in Zoom.
Yay.
Thank you, Howie. Ian, I see. Emily? Okay. And out here, folks? Anybody?
I'm going to abstain.
You're going to abstain.
Okay.
Okay.
I don't know whether to vote
Bill,
for it or against it.
roll call. Bill, do I need a roll call and an abstention? I think I do, right?
Yes, if you don't have unanimous,
Anything short
you
of
gotta do a
unanimous.
roll call.
Okay. All right, let's start with let's do a roll call.
You got 3
then.
there.
Yeah, all right. Go ahead, just for posterity, Ian. Thank you, Emily.
Yes.
Howie?
Yay.
Thank you. Dana?
Yay.
Yay.
Lindsay?
Yay.
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 Abstain.
All right, there we go. We got it, it's official.
You got Craig's got a hand up.
Craig got his
Oh,
hand
go
up.
ahead, Craig.
Yeah, no, I just want to thank you guys for allowing me to speak to the medical side before going into that vote. I really appreciate it because I would have probably gone to bed later just like I didn't talk about that. I didn't talk about the safety stuff. So I just wanted to say thank you for engaging that conversation with me and bringing the rest of the public into it. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Craig, and thanks to everybody. Yeah, go ahead, Dan.
I was just wondering if at some point, bring it out to the board, would be nice to hear from our school nurses to maybe present a report or something on how things, our COVID coordinator, like to know how things are going. because we're kind of not hearing. I mean, it'd be nice to hear face to face or Zoom to Zoom.
Yeah.
I know she's probably not gonna like me after this, but, I mean, I'm kind of curious to, know what's going on in her world. I mean, this was the first, when we got the report, that they're struggling to get these test-to-stay kids. Is there anything that we can do as a board to make that better?
Not if we don't follow the guidance of the professionals we put in charge of the COVID task force.
Thanks, Ken.
Thanks, Ken.
Yeah.
Problem.
All right, well, appreciate it, and thank you, yes, agreed, for bringing it to our attention. And of course, we know that you will do the right thing at the right time as things change on the ground. So I'm completely comfortable in that. All right, appreciate it. Go ahead, Bob.
Well, I just thought my board report, that was a little levity to the moment.
Let's do it.
Yes,
Had a
please.
chance to read this essay.
That essay was
Yes.
amazing.
I just highlighted a few things I want to just read out loud.
I want to cut and paste it.
So,
That's great.
1937, they're talking about consolidating elementary schools, 1937. So, just a quick note on this, and the long-term planning committee starts, I'm going to put in my pitch. By the year 2034, all right, seems like a long ways away, it's 12 years away, right? That is the bicentennial of Leland and Gray. What a cool end date for some kind of a long-term planning, I think, around what you want to have, and then you have a bicentennial gala to do whatever it is, celebrate whatever it is that you're celebrating. But just to keep that in mind, I don't know, they'll still be, might be retired by then, I don't know, but that's just something to keep in mind. It's a cool concept.
Wow.
Yeah, so a couple things. One, I just love the location of the new school. Townsend seems to be the most suitable. Centrally located, has nice roads leading to it. Everything kind of leads to Townsend. I thought that was just kind of a funny thing based on what the committee had come up with, is Townsend is centrally located. They have this idea for this new building. It's only going to cost $100,000. I just figured you guys.
Is that still relevant today?
It includes a gym. Yeah, so $100,000, it's going to get yourself a new school. The basement would even have sanitary fixtures, which the elementary schools don't have. I assume they had outhouses, right? That's my guess.
Yeah.
They did.
So, Ken, you were in school in 1937?
My father-in-law used to, as a student, would do the outhouses in the morning, raise the flag, bring up the water from the creek for a whole quarter a month.
Love it.
There's a site.
I love that one of the arguments for doing this was that at lunchtime, the students will be under the supervision of a good, capable teacher, as opposed to students running around getting into mischief or getting hurt, as so often happens in the rural schools. I thought that was great. And then the closing paragraph, the future pupil would be much better cared for and better able to go out in the world and make a success of himself if he is given the advantages of the consolidated school, the dream which we hope may come true in the near future. I just thought it was a great, someone handed me, it was a woman that found a bunch of these old messengers and mailed them to the school, and we gave them to Barbara to put in the library, but I happened to just, I wonder what this is. I opened it up, and that's the article I saw when I opened it up.
It's amazing.
Pretty cool, so that was your little moment of levity for the principal's report. So,
Love it.
Deja
It was
vu.
priceless.
2034, that's your target.
They even have paved roads, yeah.
Yeah, I know, some of them are even paved.
H.P. Lovecraft said that all civilization ends in Newfane.
Wow. Yeah, that was great.
And just for the record, not all those roads are paved between all those towns from here to there. Still to
Even
this
still,
day.
yeah, right.
Okay, just so we have the facts. Okay.
Progress, slow. All right, anything else on the other reports, superintendent report? No, all right, moving on to approve financials. Do you
have the numbers, Joe?
I haven't even looked at them.
Okay, I think you should
Well,
put it off till next time.
Yeah, because you were away, right? You didn't have a chance to, I wasn't expecting this last AP vouchers.
Yeah, you're not gonna get one for the 31st,
Yeah.
but you did get one.
Did,
Yes.
21st.
Yeah, I haven't even opened it yet. I've been that slammed.
Can we table it
Sorry.
till next month?
I mean, we can still
we can-
review it and give it to her, they can write the
Yeah.
checks, and then we
Right.
can just approve it at the next meeting.
Yeah, we still need second approval so the checks can go out, but if
All right.
the board approval can wait till next time.
Okay. Well, tomorrow looks a lot better than today. But it's early.
Yeah, oh boy. All right, on to IntraSU school choice. We don't need, Bill, we don't need to decide anything on that tonight? Just correct?
No, just, so it's a reminder that on the 24th, which is your next scheduled meeting, because you normally would meet on the 17th, and that is Martin Luther King holiday. So if you see at the bottom of your agenda, the 24th is when your next scheduled meeting is. That following Wednesday, the 26th, is a WCSU meeting. And at that meeting, your 6 representatives are going to need to come to the meeting on the 26th with an opinion about whether they support moving forward with intra-SU school choice or not. And so tonight is just a reminder that you should be thinking about this. I've provided the document. This is the 3rd meeting I've provided the document for you. But you're going to need to give some direction. We'll put it on the agenda on the 24th for how are your 6 people supposed to represent at the WCSU meeting to allow for intra-SU choice.
Okay, thanks, Bill. All right, can we look at that in between now and the 24th, or does anybody have opinion, discussion right now?
What's the financial compensation?
I don't think there is any.
Right.
Wouldn't be.
It is, no money would change hands. ADM would stay with the host districts. It would simply be a decision of do you allow 5 or 10% to come out and come in, with full control over the classrooms that are eligible and not eligible. So for example, if you have a 3rd grade classroom that already has 18 students, that would be an ineligible classroom. But if you had a 3rd grade classroom that had 15 students, you could say we have 3 slots that are available, up to a total of between 5 and 10% in and out. So for West River, it's going to be either between 25 and 50 out and in. My guess is you're going to probably hang more towards that 5% list. But again, I will explain all of this again on the 24th, but really it's a conceptual idea that you would allow students from West River to attend other SU schools with limitations, and you would accept other students from SU schools with limitations. No money would change hands. ADM would stay with the host district.
And is this only K through 5?
K through 8.
K through 8. Okay.
And 8 is very limited because it's basically just 7th and 8th would be Marlboro and Leland and Gray. Once you include 6th, then you can also include Dover, Wyndham, and Wardsboro.
And what is spacing like in the building here? Is there would there be a cap on number of students that we could take in those grades?
Yes, each district gets to decide that.
We're
I'd
looking
like
for
to
the
hear
win.
from Bob, since he's here. Not, you don't have to do it tonight, but, you know, just.
I'll call some kids tomorrow.
Count the space.
All right, well, any other questions before we move on?
Well, I was just thinking, we already have everything from Bob because we have high school choice, and we set those parameters every year, how many we allow in and how many we allow out in the high school. This is this is K8, K5, K whatever. This would really be the other, it's going to affect the elementary schools way more than it's going to affect anything you have.
Well, I was trying to think of the Jamaica situation. there might be some potential to lose more in Jamaica.
Which we never actually
Or gain.
talked about specifically when we had our budget conversation.
Yeah, how few students are
That letter,
projected.
the letter from Scotty, we never had that discussion.
This would really help
You're right.
kids in Wyndham.
Well, since he's not here,
Right.
Yeah, we gotta,
He
Well,
was
then
going-
Are
he
we
was
having
going
a
to
second
speak to
January
it,
meeting?
so-
Because we could put it to the first.
We have an emergency.
Didn't we talk about the potential for having another January?
That's true. Yeah, we'll have another budget meeting on the 10th.
A budget committee meeting?
Yeah, sorry, budget committee meeting. Yeah,
Yes. I don't know if we actually scheduled it, but
okay. Yeah, I think we probably should now.
yeah.
Okay. Yeah, Lindsay, that's a great point. And I believe we had asked for a recommendation, and he did give Model 2.
Model
Which was
2
6 in
and-
one and 7 in the other.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The Model 2 one would seem better. The Model 4, he had one teacher doing K through 5, which, that can't happen. That's that deal where you had in Bob's article about getting away from the K through 8 teacher.
Why don't we move to Rossendale School?
Yeah, you could.
I can have Scotty see if he can come to the budget committee.
Yeah, that'd be great. Okay.
Or Zoom in.
Yeah.
Since we did
Sounds
it on
good.
Zoom.
He had 2 that were nightmares and 2 that he liked or preferred.
Yeah. Okay.
So for the public that doesn't know at all what we're talking about right now, because we just
Yeah.
referenced a letter.
Yeah.
Do you want to give the overview?
Yeah, so Scotty had given us several options or choices for models for the upcoming year. And I have it in front of me.
JBS.
Yeah, so he had come up with these different models, and I believe had suggested one in particular. I believe this was in this was in the documents, right?
It was
So-
in the document,
Yeah,
that's
this
right.
is in the-
It's,
Okay.
it's talking about the current number of students and then projected for next year. What
Right.
that looks like for class sizes.
Yep, and the projected for next year was 13 students. So his breakout, optimal breakout was K through 3, 6 students, and 4 and 5, 7 students. I think that was his recommended model. There are other models, but I won't get into that because that's in the information. So we will talk about that at our at the next budget committee meeting. But I don't think were there any budgetary implications?
It would, if the Model 2, or
Yes, I'm trying to
that
remember
would
the-
keep the staff levels the same.
Okay,
It's-
that's right.
There's
yeah.
no,
No.
No implications, okay. Great, yep, so we will discuss that. All right, let's move on to policy.
Yeah, so we've already warned this policy, and it's just time to vote to adopt it.
I'll entertain that motion.
So moved.
Seconded.
Okay, any discussion?
Long overdue.
All right, all those in favor in Zoom land, thumbs up. Thank you.
All right.
Thank you. Out here, looks good,
Aye.
looks good. Yeah, all right, passes unanimously. All right, thank you very much. Before we jump to the next and last, I want to remind everybody that our meeting will be on January 24th, not the 17th. We will have a budget committee meeting on the 10th, January 10th. So appreciate that, and I want to wish everybody the best and happiest of holidays. And we will see all of you in the new year. Thank you very much. And now-
Just wait, before we make the last motion, one person we didn't thank, and I'd like to thank BCTV. They are actually my go-to guide when we have a discussion and then we go back 5 months later. And then I can look up and I see these topics, like in these questions, when somebody says, well, you're supposed to leave that to the professionals, okay? And then I'll go back and I can look at that and tell you exactly who said that and in what context. It's really good. I suggest everybody use that, and thank you guys so much. You're a very valuable tool to us board members.
Thank you, BCTV.
And our community.
And always our community.
All right, I will entertain that final motion.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Yeah, baby.
I'm sorry, Dana.
I got some time.
Drew and then Lindsay. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.